Hi everyone, you have the dubious honor of being my first ever BSides talk, thank you. Yeah, look, I'm going to try and get through this quickly because I realize we are over time, but thank you so much for attending. I don't know how bad the other session was, but I appreciate you being here. And in fact, starting off with humor is pretty much a very good indicator of imposter syndrome. So if you're not aware of imposter syndrome, it isn't technical. I have no code in my slides. I went to my comfort zone, which is non-technical. Those of you who know me, I am part of a sales sort of organization, so talking to PowerPoint's my thing. But imposter syndrome is essentially that feeling that, am I good enough to do this? And I think it's something that is so prevalent in cybersecurity, in life in general, and most people have experienced it in one way, shape, or form at some point. So if you think about, you want to get into cybersecurity, you want to try a new job, you want to try and something new, you want to go and look for vulnerabilities, throw back to the previous one, am I good enough to do this? And it's that there's no evidence to say you can't. In fact, there's generally evidence to say you're very good at what you do, but you just can't shake that feeling. And to give you an example of that, this is when I started my slide deck. You'll notice that's Thursday evening, about 20 to midnight. I delayed it for as long as possible. Don't look at my steps or heart rate, please. But I delayed it as long as possible because I thought, do I really want to do this? I only actually submitted talks because we didn't have that many, and I wanted to kind of bump up the numbers. And then it was accepted. Am I good enough to do this? Is this something I can actually do? What if someone in the audience calls me out and says I'm wrong? What happens if, do I even know what I'm talking about? And quite honestly, you sit and talk to yourself in your head. The voices sometimes make sense, and you say, you know what, if someone thinks they can do better, let them submit a talk next year. Let them come and stand up here. We'll have a discussion over there. Ultimately, imposter syndrome, if you want to identify what it looks like and how you feel, you think what you know is so small by comparison to what other people know. But the reality is, you actually are better than you think. So self-doubt is a big part of this. Can I actually do this? Is this the place I want to be? And if you do manage to get something working and you do well, you kind of play it off to, oh, well, I was just lucky. It's just, how things go. It wasn't really up to me. It was something else, situational, etc. You're constantly afraid of failing, and you have to strive for perfectionism. I can't let this be a thing until it's actually perfect. Done is not an option. It must be perfect. It must be good. And in some people, it shows itself as, I'm just going to work as hard as I can to look busy, because then I must know what I'm doing. So I'm going to work and just keep going and just keep going. And personally, this is something I can relate to cybersecurity, because for years, I actually was at school with Dominic White. I don't know if you guys caught the keynote that he did. And I watched his career. I see him presenting at Black Hat. And I'm like, geez, that guy really knows what he's talking about. Wow, let me have a look at the careers page on SensePost. And I was like, yeah, this is never something I'm gonna be able to aspire towards. These guys are just too good. I'll never be a part of that. I actually got the opportunity to work for Orange Cyber Defense last year. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and realized that actually they're quite a humble bunch of people. The same at BSides, thinking, should I even come to BSides? It's technical people, it's security. I don't really know what I'm talking about. I just, I'll read some news articles and I regurgitate that. I went to BSides Cape Town, my first one last year, and suddenly it was like, hang on, I'm teaching people to pick locks. I don't know how to do this. I've just watched the lockpicking the lockpicking lawyer on YouTube. And I'm just kind of repeating that, and suddenly people are learning from me. Does that mean I know what I'm doing? That's a scary thought. So that imposter syndrome, actually in reality, you know more than you think, but you talk yourself out of it. So really, what you have to do is change your thinking to say, I'm going to try this, but they'll soon find out that I'm not that great, to they'll soon find out that I'm actually great. I'm good at what I do. And no, I'm not a lockpicker by any stretch of the imagination, but I can teach you the theory. I'm in sales. I don't do practical. So when it comes to this imposter syndrome, you have to keep repeating that to yourself. You have to keep reminding yourself. But that's just one of the tools that we have. I will talk about these all in a little bit more detail, because I know you're probably going to read them. But these are just some of the tips and tricks that have helped me, and that doing some research online, etc., that have helped. So I will bring a little bit of personal insight into this and how this has actually worked for me. But when you acknowledge and normalize, it's actually described quite nicely in that pie chart. There's only a certain percentage of people who will get imposter syndrome, and then there's another percentage of people, and then the rest of the group is made up of literally everybody else who also gets it. Remember that everyone suffers from this in some way, shape, or form. Every time that, I've chatted with Leon or Dominic or Charles or, various other people who I don't want to name and shame, but you how did you come up with that idea? Well, I wasn't sure, and I kind of thought about it, and you discuss with other people in the industry, or, how do I get into cybersecurity? I'm not going to be good enough. I look at people who work in the SOC. I look at these pen testers. I don't think like that. Neither did they initially. This is what they've learned from just doing and trying. So acknowledge that, normalize it, recognize that everyone experiences this, and that's okay. You're not strange, you're not weird. Especially identify and challenge those negative thoughts. If you hear them, if it starts talking down to you and you think, I can't do this, ask yourself, why not? Yes, you're going to talk to yourself a lot. It's not a sign of madness, or maybe it is, but, depends what the answers you get back are. But question that, can I really do this? For me, doing this presentation, it's like, can I really actually do this? Is this something I'm comfortable talking about? Well, yes, it is, because I've helped people. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but people have sought my advice on something. So clearly I must have decent insight. I must be persuasive. I'm honest. Who knows? That's up to them to say. But every time you hear these self-doubts, replace them with a positive thing. Say, I'm not sure if I can do this. You actually can. You've proven it here, or you know what you're talking about, or, be prepared. If someone does try and correct you, get into a conversation. Have that comfort within yourself to say, cool, but I always thought it was like this. Leads on to the next point of develop that self-compassion. I realize this sounds very wishy-washy, but actually, if you're sitting in the audience watching a speaker and they stumble over their words or their slides don't work, you typically don't stand up and go, you're crap. Or, you might do it to me because we know each other, but you typically wouldn't. So why are you so hard on yourself when it comes to that? Treat yourself with that same kindness. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to make missteps. You're going to maybe push an update that might have a little bit of an impact on Windows machines around the world. I had to slip some reference in there. But that's the thing. Accidents happen to everybody. And, on that point, the self-compassion soon turns into compassion for other people as well. So when something, say a hypothetical like bricking Windows machines around the world happens, you don't turn around and jeer and shout. You say, I hope you guys get it fixed. How can I help? As opposed to, how can I turn this into a win for me? When you're looking at a task, a presentation, a project, a new role, something like that, set realistic goals. It is a cliche. How do you eat an elephant? Personally, I don't eat elephant, but some people apparently do. But the analogy there is one bite at a time. Same as, break it into small, manageable tasks. Look at, okay, what do I actually know? Where am I comfortable? What can I start with? And then how do I take that to the next block? How do I take that next bite? What is that next step? It was actually quite nicely shown in the previous talk about the blind SQLI, saying, I started with something, I tried something else, and it kind of built from there. And they then learned different skills, OS ints. They learned how to do these things just one step at a time. Seeking support. Those of you who know me, I talk a lot about a cybersecurity tribe. Not because we're all savages living in huts, but because I believe that concept of tribal knowledge, of helping each other, of looking after each other is so crucial within cybersecurity. We're all competitive. We work for different companies, be they vendors or service providers or pen testers, ethical hackers, etc. But we're all doing essentially a very similar thing in this sphere. We should help each other. So talk to your peers. Come to BSides, particularly Cape Town. You're welcome. Attend Hex Coffee. Join Hack South. Everyone here typically is willing to share. Some people, yes, there's always an element of ego. That is natural, but we're all willing to share. We're happy to share. We're happy to help others. We're happy to help you learn, point you to resources, etc. One of the biggest ways I overcame this imposter syndrome was joining Hack South and just being like, I'm just going to ask this question. I'm going to get ready for people to go, oh my God, you noob, what are you doing here? And it's not. It's like, you see people learning Linux, and they're so excited because they managed to do what I consider to be one of the most basic things. But I look at that and go, but I also know how to do that basic thing, so maybe I'm not that bad. Nobody judges you, nobody makes fun of you. We're actually here to support and help, because that's how we bridge the skills gap that every vendor tells us exists. That's how we get people excited and involved in cybersecurity. Celebrate your achievements, no matter how small they are. As I said, someone managed to install Linux. That for them was a huge achievement. They've never done this before. That's cool. You know, what lessons did you learn? Share that, but celebrate the fact you got that working. You achieved a small thing. You know, and I like the generic Clarkson version of I did a thing. It doesn't matter what that thing was, you did it. Own it, accept it, enjoy it. And always learn. There's a theory, I don't want to put too many cliches on the slides, but I'm doing pretty well. But if you're the smartest person in a room, you're in the wrong room. You know, I come to BSides and I'm always humbled because we have people in, you know, some of the top levels of big organizations. We have people who want to get into the industry. Everybody's here to learn something from somebody. You know, you just have conversations, you pick up bits of information, you watch the talks, hopefully. You can rewatch them on YouTube, things like that. We're here to learn. Don't be afraid of failure. To my mind, failure legitimately is just a way that didn't work. There's many, many ways that didn't work. Find a way that does. Don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid to start something just because you might be bad at it. How am I doing time-wise? Awesome. I'm a little bit ahead of time, which is a bonus for you all. Because to recap, just remember, imposter syndrome happens to everybody at some point. Anyone in this room, if they're honest with themselves, if they're honest with you, will say, yep, there was a time I didn't know what I was doing. I had to, you know, I've never been a red teamer, but I've spoken to a few of the guys that do it, and they say, you know, it's that first time you walk into a company and you have to pretend to be someone else. And it's nerve-wracking. They're going to find me out. They spent all this money and I'm going to fall over in the first half an hour. And then, but they didn't catch you, but they let you in. They held the door for you just because your hands were full of coffee, or they didn't check your employee badge, or whatever the case may be. Everybody suffers from imposter syndrome in one way, shape, or form. So be kind to yourself. Be aware that this thing happens. It's okay that it happens, and make sure that you back yourself. You know you can do it. You know you've got the encouragement. I should have actually put a Shia LaBeouf, just do it. But, you know, he's running out of slides. And then finally, like, leverage your tribe. Use the people around you. Ask questions. Be curious. Keep learning. Someone may have done something before. They might help you think a different way, come up with a different solution or a different answer. Don't be afraid to talk to people and just engage. It's on the Orange Cyber Defense lanyards. I remember some of them. Abide by your work like hell. Share all that you know. Abide by your handshake and have fun. And those 4 things are just so powerful. You know, share what you know. You can have a bit of ego. That's cool. You know, you were the first person to do something. That's great. But share it. Help other people learn. Help other people grow. So, with that, I am almost on time. So you can get some tea or coffee a bit early. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.